I sincerely love scallops. Get it? Okay, all puns aside, I really do love scallops, but I also love Sancerre. So we are gonna take that citrusy, mineral-driven wine, team it up with some scallops in this recipe, plus we're gonna be incorporating a poaching technique that is gonna cook those scallops perfectly. We are not just making scallops here because we're making an entire meal that I happen to think is kind of elegant. So we're gonna make some creamy, buttery grits. We're gonna serve the scallops on top, and then we're gonna top it all with a delicious, crunchy hazelnut topping. First things first, we gotta make those grits. So this is 1 quart of low sodium chicken broth and a cup of water. All right, so we're gonna gradually stir in 1 cup of quick cooking grits. All right, knock that heat back to medium-low and just cook the grits. You wanna stir until they are nice and tender. You're gonna let those cook, and in the meantime, we are gonna prepare a couple aromatics for our poaching mixture. We need 1 shallot, just sliced, right? 1 shallot, and then we just need a couple garlic cloves that we're just gonna crush with the side of our knife. Let's check our grits. You can see they have gotten nice and thick, a really thick porridge here, but you don't want it too thick. The good news is, if it does get a little too thick, you can always just add a little bit of water to thin it out. Let's give it a little taste. You know they are ready to go when they're nice and tender. Perfect. So we are gonna add about 1/4 cup of Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese. We're also gonna add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Let's go ahead and stir this. The cheese is gonna give it this really nice, nutty flavor, and the butter is just gonna give it a richness and a silkiness. Let's hit it with a little bit of salt and some freshly ground black pepper. Stir that in, cover the pot. All right, so we're gonna let our grits hang out. They're gonna stay nice and warm, and we're gonna get that poaching liquid ready to go. To a medium saucepan, we are gonna add a couple tablespoons of butter. That is just about melted, so we're gonna go ahead and add the shallot and the garlic, and a generous pinch of kosher salt, and we're gonna cook this until the shallot is tender. This is really the first layer of flavor that we're gonna add to our poaching liquid. All right, so our shallots are nice and softened. That garlic is really fragrant. It's time to go in with a little vino. Yes, this is where the Sancerre comes in, and we've got 2 cups of it. And obviously, whenever you are working with wine, you wanna be really careful. So if you're more comfortable, just cut the heat, add the wine, and then turn your stove back on. We're gonna carefully bring this to a simmer. So I'm gonna do that over about medium-low heat. In the meantime, let's grab our scallops. Okay, so we are using sea scallops. You always wanna make sure you get dry packed, which means they have no added liquid. If they have added liquid or they're stored in a liquid, do not buy them. So I've got 12 beautiful sea scallops here. And one thing you might notice when you buy them is they oftentimes have this little flap on one side of the scallop. That's actually called the abductor muscle, and it's a little chewy, so you wanna remove it. And you can do that just by very carefully just picking it off, just like that. And once your wine is about at this level here, where it's just starting to bubble, it's time to add our scallops. So one by one, let's add our scallops in. And if it's boiling too much, just cut that heat back because we are poaching, not boiling. And I always like to add the bigger scallops first, just to make sure that the smaller ones don't get overcooked. All right, let me just zhuzh these around. And what I like to do is actually just flip the scallops about halfway through the cooking. So maybe at like the 2 or 3 minute mark, just give them a little flip. While our scallops are poaching, we are gonna go ahead and skin some hazelnuts. These are whole raw hazelnuts. I toasted in the oven for anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. We're gonna transfer the hazelnuts to 1/2 of the kitchen towel. And we're gonna fold the towel over the hazelnuts, and we're gonna rub them together. And this just releases the skins and allows you to pick out just the nuts. All right, and look at that. Magic! So we're gonna go ahead and pick them all out and just sort of pile them up on our cutting board here. Just in the nick of time, our scallops are ready. So we're gonna go ahead and carefully remove them and transfer them to a plate. They don't have a lot of color. That's not the point of this technique. The point of the technique is just to cook them gently until they're barely cooked through. For the poaching liquid, you can either discard it or you can save it if you'd like to make the recipe again. You can also poach shrimp in there. So delicious. All right, for our topping, we need a small skillet and a couple tablespoons of unsalted butter. And while that melts, we're just gonna go ahead and chop our hazelnuts, which, by the way, are gonna roll all over the place, so just be careful. Butter is melted. Let's add our hazelnuts. And because our hazelnuts are already toasted, we don't wanna cook them too much at this point. You really just wanna melt that butter and get the hazelnuts nice and warm. And while those cook, we are just snipping a few chives. It's gonna be our garnish. I think we're ready to plate this bad boy. And this recipe serves 4, so I would say go in with 1/4 of those grits. And grab our scallops. Of course, we wanna go in with some of that hazelnut butter. And last but certainly not least, a few chives. I mean, this is screaming dinner party, I gotta say. Let's give it a try. Get a little bit of scallop, a little bit those grits and the hazelnuts. Take a picture of that. They are succulent and they really picked up that citrusy, minerally taste of the Sancerre. I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, there is no need to confine your wine to a glass. Get some Sancerre, get some grits, get some hazelnuts, but do not forget the scallops. Happy poaching.